We will call this meeting of the Governance Committee on August 24th at 11 o'clock. I'm going to let everyone go around the room and introduce themselves. That way I don't have to frantically try to recall every name. I'm Andy Holloman, board member and chair of the Governance Committee.
Rob Holland, acting COO, ASD.
I'm Amanda Foster, executive assistant to the school board.
Dave Donnelly, board member and member of the governance committee.
Jim Anderson, chief finance officer.
Ryan Thrasher, IT project manager.
Jarrett Bryant, superintendent.
Kelly Lessons, board member and governance committee member.
And our guests as well.
Carl
Oh,
Jacobs.
sorry.
Corey Yates, teacher.
Paul McDonough, supervisor for the Indigenous Education Programs.
Paulina Batman, Director of Indigenous and Migrant Education.
Steve Brown, security and emergency management.
Ashley Lally, director of security and emergency management.
Thank you all. And as I said before, please, I'm sorry, and our friends online as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Margot Bellamy, board member.
Mike Fleckenstein, Chief Information Officer.
Kathy Moffett, Director of Admin Projects.
I believe that's everybody that's not in the room, but also attending electronically. As I said before, the big goal is just to clean out the agenda, whatever items are from last year. So I will absolutely hold this within the hour and start with item B1, safe and secure storage of firearms education. Anyone like to speak to that?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to start. This is a resolution brought forth by members Bellamy, Lessons, and Wilson. And it's to require education on the safe and secure storage of firearms. So I'm hoping everyone has read it. And basically what this resolution will do is direct the superintendent to distribute gun safety storage information. That information has previously been shared with the board. And it would also continue our partnerships with our partners, our community, to make sure that the safe storage of guns is shared. That information is shared among our students and our community. And also to put the information that the superintendent would distribute the information in our usual manner, which includes in different, I think the 5 or 6 languages that we do. So Kelly, did you want to make some opening comments? Is Dora in the room? I can't remember if I heard Dora's name.
She is not.
Okay. Member Lessons, your comments before we answer questions.
Thank you, Member Bellamy, for bringing this to the table. A couple of quick points of clarification. There are a couple of statistics specific to the Anchorage School District, and those come directly from the latest Youth Risk Behavior Survey, which is dated in 2019. So I had a note here about check the YRBS, and indeed those are Anchorage High School student rates. So 40% of our students report they could get and be ready to fire a loaded gun. And the statistic suicide does reflect a 2019 date because there is no more current information that I'm aware of. But I think that encouraging partnering with our families, encouraging them, we have so many hunters, keep those things locked up safely as a smart, reasonable thing to do. I'm supportive of this.
Any other comments, discussion?
I think the resolution by itself is probably fine with me. I've been advocating for years that we adopt the Eddie Eagle program, which includes storage safety in it. So I think there's a lot more that could be done as far as gun safety, teaching gun safety in our to our students. I also hope, I'm not exactly familiar with the materials that are referenced in the resolution. I don't believe in, laws that compel a certain, within somebody's household, how they choose to secure the weapons because of my own personal experiences. And from a security point of view, and also because I think, the vast majority of our kids are very responsible. And I don't want to deny legitimate access to firearms for practice and training and things like that. So I don't have a problem with the resolution, but I'm also disappointed we haven't moved forward with a more comprehensive gun safety program like Eddie Eagle, which has really proven to be effective.
Could you remind us that, I know that you brought it up recently and maybe it was also addressed in the Board Connect, the Eddie Eagle program, that's something that could take place during the curricular day as part of our
That's not,
the gun safety classes or part of general education?
Yeah, good.
Where would you envision
Well,
inserting it? I guess that's
I think I'd want to work that out with the administration, would it be most appropriate, whether it be some, what kind of, how we facilitate it.
I would be supportive of that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any others? If not, I'm sorry, say, yes.
I think I'm getting
President
it.
Bellamy?
Yes, the intent of the resolution is not to compel. It is to give information to our community, to our kids, our families. So what individuals choose to do with it is really up to them. This is not to compel anything or provide or alter the curriculum in any way. But it is to get information, safety, gun storage safety into the hands of our families. So there were no curricular implementations or provisions in this particular resolution. Just wanted to make that clear. And I would like to move that. Oh, I guess I can't do that because I'm just ex officio, but I would like to see this moved out of committee into our non-action agenda.
And I was just going to add, we don't normally attach fiscal notes, but I don't see anything in this that would actually cost us additional money. We're facilitating the transfer of documents and whatnot. And in reference to Member Donnelly, I think what happened is over the past couple of decades, we've just seen staff trimmed a little bit every year. And the class I brought up about hunter safety used to be in some schools, and it directly addressed the Department of Fish and Game's requirement for younger hunters to have gone through something like that. Of course, it included gun safety, familiarity with wildlife laws and all kinds of things. There used to be a wealth of electives at middle school level and more at high school than we have now, and they've just like gradually been Mr. Anderson will address it in his comments about inflation and flat funding at different times, but and I feel the same way about swimming in a state that's got so much water and we have so much wildlife and we have so many guns. These are things a school district could address and have a big impact, a positive impact on.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
We've been building this, our third, we have the three priorities, reading, mathematics, and a whole person, somebody being, ready for citizenship, right, person. And I think the kind of things that you express an interest in kind of fit within that whole person concept. And right now, we've mostly been exploring personal financial responsibility as a component in that whole person concept, ready for life, I guess is how we're saying it, right? And I think what you just expressed might be another prong of that. effort too, being able to swim, knowing gun safety, those things would go towards life skills that would fit under that category.
And we won't even begin to draw parallels between gun safety and sex ed in class. We just won't go there. I would entertain a motion that we pass this to the general board, Member Donald.
I'm so moved, but if there's a second, I would like to hear a comment from the administration. They haven't commented yet.
Second.
I know coming from another state, familiarity with guns and things like that may not be a big item.
Comment on the gun
I'm kidding.
safety.
He's from Texas.
I know they have some guns there, but it's a small state.
Sir, what was the request? A statement on
Do you have anything
on the
resolution?
on this resolution?
Yeah.
Oh, no. I don't.
Okay.
The committee members in favor of passing it to the board. Seeing no objections, then it is passed to the board to be placed on the agenda. The follow-up policy review is put off until the next meeting at the request of Mr. Seifert. That brings us to the land acknowledgement.
Wait, hold on.
No, that was just for the,
41.
yeah, 41.
Okay.
Yeah. We do
Okay.
have the reviews.
Have the others.
Then Member Lessons, do you want to speak to this?
Sure, this was, when we brought up these 3 items at the previous governance committee meeting, it occurred to me that although the intent and the language is generally good, fine, adequate, it may not be fully aligned with the goals and guardrails that we've adopted. So this was my attempt to realign in BP 0000, realign. I didn't change any philosophy items. The idea of a goal, the idea of an objective. That's the first one. The second one was BP 0200, goals for the school district. And again, I tried to draft something that would speak to the framework that we have of goals and guardrails. And the third item, BP 0210, simply changed goals to objectives for student learning because those are less measurable. Right? We have our measurable board goals, and these are really more of the objective. And I did add in item 3 to mastery of basic skills and working knowledge. I did list statistics, civics, and digital literacy. I thought those were 3 items to call out in particular. And I also on item 5 added that it's important to promote creative thinking in addition to logical and critical thinking. So those were my suggestions. I'm happy to entertain board discussion on any of those 3 items that they're grouped together.
Open for discussion.
Uh,
Member Bellman?
Yes.
President Bellman?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Member Lessons. I absolutely agree with your changes. I would like to have us consider, can you scroll back up to the goal, the top where we define goal, what it means, refers to a specific, okay, you did say measurable, which means it has to be smart, right?
Yes, I didn't use the word smart,
Right,
but thinking about our board goal adoption process.
Yes, so yes, I just want to make sure that I had missed that piece in there, so that's great, yeah. And then the other, I think I'm fine with all the others. It does put us in better alignment with what we're actually doing. And so, yeah, I think they're reasonable. I don't know if anyone has any other wordsmithing to do, but I'm good with what you presented. Thank you.
Any other discussion?
On wordsmithing, it's strategy 26. I would just add another S, just a wordsmith.
And we might need to take that
As
out.
opposed to strategy 16. Yes.
It's
Couldn't
26.
follow that. I couldn't.
Yeah.
In item, so under 0000, item 2, I made an error in my Roman numerals, and it's XXVI, not XVI.
But member lessons, I'm thinking we might not want to put that in our policy statement.
Yeah, that's fine too. This is.
So, yeah, but I see, I understand what the for instance that you were putting there, but I don't know that we want that last sentence
Okay.
in there, but that's just me. Because that's going to change, and it won't change for 5 years, well, hopefully, but it will potentially change, and I don't know that. So I think, or you could put something like the board's adopted goals. I don't know if you need it, really.
I think you could delete the sentence and it would be just fine.
Yeah, I think so too. Thank you.
We are cutting that sentence out of the puzzle. Other comments? No.
On the lessons on the BP 210
Yes.
objectives, are there some things are struck out? Is there any additional text you put in here? How
Sorry,
would I-
if you scroll, you can see it better in red on the
Oh,
right
okay.
behind you.
Oh, yeah.
Under 0210, it didn't print out very in color. If you could go down, please. And yeah. I changed the word goals to objectives and added those statistics, civics, digital literacy, and creatively.
Creativity. Anything else down, scrolling down farther? Below
I
8?
don't think I added anything else.
We didn't make any other changes. She didn't.
Thank you.
And I'll speak to item 5. I think that as we consider what a 21st century education needs to entail, our students must be nimble, and they're not going to have careers in a linear way. They're going to be moving, they're going to be moving from idea to idea, project to project. And that, we talk about developing the ability to think outside the box. So by all means, I want our students to be logical and critical, but also creative. And I think that also speaks to, our fine arts, for example.
Other comments? I do think it brings a lot of precision and clarity, and I think it's always good.
Great.
I support this. My only comment is not something with what you're doing, but I might move in number 3 under 210. I might move reading ahead of mathematics because it is our adopted target.
Yeah.
So it would say reading, mathematics, and then go on to the other list of things. And I
Yeah.
know it's really minor, it's there, but
Let's prioritize that.
yeah.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent suggestion.
You want to amend that before we vote on it, or let us battle it out?
I think I'm happy to amend that currently. This is
Okay. So if you want to say that's just moving the word reading.
to the front of mathematics.
Okay. Anyone else have comment or seek clarity before we vote? Seeing no hands. All those in favor of passing this to the board, putting it on the agenda? Any opposed? Okay, it is moved on committee to the board. That brings us to the land acknowledgement resolution. And would anyone like to speak to that?
So I can start, and then I'll punt to Member Jacobs. And I do want to thank members Lessons and Don Lee for taking time to send in your comments. We were not able to address all of them in this second draft, the draft that's the 20. That's the wrong draft. I'm sorry. It should be 823.
I don't have that one, Mr.
Okay. I
This
don't think
is
we
the
could-
one you just sent me today. It
Okay.
is the 8-3.
Okay, is it titled 823? Yes, I see. Okay, that's the right one.
I brought copies of the one that I had, but I don't have that one.
It's up on the screen.
And so, and I do understand, so thank you for your input. My comments are that this is, for me, this is not an intent to be political in any way. The intent is to provide our students with and our staff with the opportunity, to learn, to be in touch with our history in ways that are, that are beneficial to and inclusive for all of our kids. This is not about my land or your land. And I'm sorry that that is a perception out there. And it probably will have to give some thought to how to address that. But this is about Alaska's history for all of us. And it's also about being respectful of the land that we occupy and we share. So it's not that the intent of this is not to diminish ownership or to diminish how we celebrate and respect Indigenous people. That's the intent is not to it's to celebrate that, it's to elevate it. It's not to make this political. So I am not thinking of this as a political thing. So which is why I reached out to last year in 2021, I began having conversations with local elders about their thinking around a land acknowledgement and how it would, how they thought it would impress and excite our students. Not just Alaska Native students, all of our students. When we are learning Alaska history, it's all of our history. It's not just specific to Native to Native Alaskans. And so, but we are in Alaska. We are on ancestral lands. And I honor and I respect that. And I think our students will honor and respect that, just simply for what it is. So this, I met again. So then in the spring, earlier in the spring, I began reaching out to, and you may recall, board members, we have been using a land acknowledgement now since 2019. Shortly after I came on the board, a member, Marcette, started using a land acknowledgement. And so this is not new. The Assembly does land acknowledgements. The museum has done outstanding research around the value of land acknowledgement, as celebrating it as part of our shared history. So this is where I'm coming from with this recommendation. I am honored to have partnered with Member Jacobs. I'm honored to have partnered with the Native, the advisory committee who actually convened a task force to help us with this work. So what we have here is a culmination of not just Margot Bellamy and Carl Jacobs, but the Alaska Native task force that was part of the Native Advisory Committee. And I thank them for their service, which is why I did ask Mr. McDonald to be here today, because he was part of that task force that did the research that provided the references in this document. So with that, I'll stop and I'll let Member Jacobs have his conversation, and then we can go from there.
Thank you, members. I don't have much to add, but I want to share my appreciation for being allowed to partner with you on this. I know there were some questions about kind of the format of the resolution and whether or not the footnotes would be necessary or beneficial, given it's a little different from how many of our resolutions look. Having talked through the topic and then received emails, as I'm sure you have as well, a few from the public, I think it's actually beneficial to have as much information as possible due to misconceptions as to what a land acknowledgement actually is. I think we're all of one mind that a land acknowledgement is a simply formal statement that recognizes and respects Indigenous peoples. That's the intent here with this policy. to that end, I want to second the appreciation for the board members who reached out with suggestions and feedback, as well as the district stakeholders who helped us get to this point. I'm proud of this work, and I think that it will absolutely represent a positive change for us as well. And so those are the comments I have. Madam President, are we asking for staff feedback or input at this point, or are we just opening it up to? the board?
Yes, we're, however the chair wants to proceed. I do want to have a staff input. I know Member Donnelly has shared a 4-page document that was shared with you last night, and you shared with me. And he may want to express some, get some clarity around not just the document itself, but issues that he had with the way I see this document. So I'll hand it back to the chair for whatever rotation he wants to do.
I'll say that I think this is something that needs to come before the whole board. And it wouldn't surprise me if there are proposed changes at that point. So if people do have changes they feel like should be made in committee, by all means, bring them forward or voice support or lack of. Anyone wish to speak? And I'm including our guests as well, if you have comments.
Somebody else wants
No,
to.
but I won't.
This is a lot better than what I'd ever seen before. I didn't get a copy of this before this meeting, so from my initial review of it, my number one concern still remains, and that's the resolution seems to adopt the land acknowledgement without us knowing what it says. It mandates it that it will happen, but we don't know what it's going to say yet. And I'm very concerned with that. Something this important being utilized as an official statement before this many events, which I have concerns about also. And we ought to see the exact language of it, because that's essential to our approval of something. Now, if this is a commission of go out and develop a proposal for the board, that makes sense to me. But if this is adopting something that we don't even know what it is yet, or specifically where it's going to be used, because this is vague too, about where it's used, that's a mistake. I mean, how could you ever possibly adopt the implementation sections of this without knowing what it says? I mean, that's the cart before the horse, to use a cliche, right? And I'm not implying that anybody who's suggesting this is doing so for a political reason, but I'm glad the footnotes are out of here, because I spent a considerable amount of time looking at what the content of the footnotes were. And I just want to relay some of the things that the footnotes indicated. The one for turning dialogue into the action video, it demanded systemic change in society, organized our institutions for systemic change, and, quote, politics, calling for transformation and effective action against white supremacy. Now, that's a direct violation of our anti-racism policy. Now, I got no problem with saying against racial supremacy, but by putting the word white in there is racist. And that's wrong, and that violates this district's policy. So
Is that in a footnote?
That is in one of the footnotes.
Yeah,
So,
the footnotes are not part of the policy, remember.
Yeah, but it was the only thing that I was given, Margot, up to this point in time.
Okay.
So you can see why a lot of people think these kinds of things are politics, because they say it's politics. The people that were the source documents for the preparation of this. Decolonizing your dialogue. And I'm really glad the words decolonization are not used in this resolution for all kinds of reasons that I spelled out in my memorandum to the board. Very, very concerning to use that language. And then, and one of the citations was, are you planning a land acknowledgement? And in the dialogue on that, it was conveyed to people that most of you have a lifetime of unlearning to do. Now, if anything ever sounded like political propaganda and indoctrination of a population, wow, that's it. That sounds like something from an authoritarian, regime would say to its people, or the great society, the great cultural revolution in China. You have a lifetime of unlearning to do. That almost like a quote from Mao, when he imprisoned millions of Chinese to teach them to be better communists. Very concerning that those were used as source material. And I'm very glad they're now out of here. I still think this is untimely to adopt a policy without seeing what the actual language is. I think it might be appropriate to say we want to develop one, adopt a resolution, say, go develop one and bring it back to us, and then we'll vote on what, when, how, and if to use it. I think the fact that it's still vague as to how it will be implemented, and yet it says it shall be, is troubling. And in particular, as to implementation, I'm concerned about it being in our classrooms. Since so many people see this as a political agenda, including the citations in the original version saw this as politics, I'm very concerned that this violates our policy against politics in the classroom. And it sets a particular, position, whether the folks in this room or our folks saw it that way. I'm not implying that. I'm implying that a lot of people do see it that way. And it's going to be, I think, really unfortunate if this becomes some sort of institutionalization, indoctrination in our classrooms. And what about free speech? What about if we have a student? There's nothing in here recognizing the rights of students. Like even our Pledge of Allegiance policy specifically says you can sit and be quiet. They don't even have to stand up for that. They can sit and be quiet, right? This doesn't say anything about how they would be able to treat this land acknowledgement if they were in a classroom and it's being force read to them. I'm also concerned about the implication here that this would get expanded to intimidating students to read it or to agree with it or not say their personal opinions that may differ from it. I'm concerned about parents that may disagree with it, and yet they'll have no choice but to have their children in this classroom for this. This is very different than a federally adopted or state adopted traditional customary thing like the Pledge of Allegiance that's adopted in federal law, or the national anthem, which is adopted in federal law, or the state flag song, which is adopted in state law. This is different. This is something this district's developing on its own. And I think it's completely inappropriate to inject it into our classrooms in any way, shape, or form, because it's political. It may not be the intent of any individual here suggesting it to be political, but it is perceived as political. And that's confirmed even by the footnotes to the original policy and what was stated by the people, that they were the resources to it. So I find that really, it violates our existing policy against politics if it gets extended into classrooms. It's a different thing when it's us adults out there in a public meeting. That's a whole different dynamic. We can kind of take care of ourselves, but I'm very concerned about our kids being imposed on that and what comes next. Once it's in the classroom and has to be recited every day, or it has to be read every day, who's going to read it? Can some teacher, well, does anybody want to volunteer to read it today? And now they're all put in pressure, right? Now it's just like, you want to say a prayer today? Who wants to lead the prayer today? And one of the students doesn't want a prayer, right? Well, now they're intimidated, right? And I see the same thing happening with this. And we know we have instructors that will do that. We know that. So there ought to be something in here clearly that says children, our students shall not be intimidated to agree with this or to participate in it. And I'm very concerned about that also, because we know that's going to happen. And we've gotten a lot of emails just in the last week with stuff going on in our classrooms. It's super, super concerning. And if we don't think this actually happens out in classrooms, that's wrong. It does. Teachers are doing this kind of thing. So I think this ought to be revamped into a resolution that says, we want to go out to the community and develop a proposal, and then come back as a resolution that adopts a specific proposal if that's what the board wants to do, but not have a generic thing that says, we're going to do this, and we don't even know what it is yet. Thanks.
If I might,
Yes, Mr. Jacobson and President Bellman.
Thank you, Chair. So just a couple of quick comments. I didn't hear, I think I heard, I appreciate the comments by Member Donnelly. I think in all of that, I heard one requested change to what's written. So you can correct me if I'm wrong. And that was your lack of clarity regarding the proposed course of action. The language that's in this draft specifically indicates that the administration will go out and seek to collaborate in drafting a land acknowledgement. I think what is missing, that's a fair point, is that a plan for implementation, should the board get a chance to review the finished product. I think that that's reasonable. I would support an added sentence at the very end and the last therefore, which states something to the effect of the final draft land acknowledgements and plan for implementation shall be presented to the board for review and adoption. Whether that be in a memorandum or an administrative regulation, I don't have a preference for, but I would support that added language at the end. I think that that's reasonable as the board will have a chance to review.
President Bellman.
yes, I just wanted to make a few comments. First of all, we have had a land acknowledgement on our website for staff to use, and we have provided them with this for probably 2, if not 3 years. This is not new. What is new is that we're trying to get it right we're trying to make sure that we collaborate with the Eklutna tribe to come up to develop an appropriate land acknowledgement. So I agree. Having it come back for the board to approve, I think, yes. I mean, it was my intent, but it probably should be written into the actual document itself. Because so I don't know what that will look like. I know what we came up with and what we use for the school board. I know what's already on our website. That wasn't just added yesterday or last week. It's been there. And for principals who want to use it, they have been using it. I don't think I attended a graduation where there wasn't a land acknowledgement. I don't think, I mean, even our student advisory board have feelings about this particular ceremony, because that's what it is. It's a ceremony. We're celebrating the land on which we share. I don't know how that gets to be political, but whatever we need to do to try to make sure that we are that we are creating understanding and not confusion, that's where we need to be. That's where I'd like for us to be as a board. So adding the comment to the end is great. I decided to leave the footnotes in because I wanted the board because they were shared with me as a resource after we had our draft policy, not before. And so I left them there so that those who would want to have more information would be able to have the information. But I also think that some of the footnoted items, some of the references, they are profound. I don't see them as political, but I get that some people will see them as political. So I'd like to hear from, I'd like to hear from the administration, Mr. Chair, and the other guests in the room who are who work with the Native Advisory Committee, the task force.
Other folks that wish to speak? Yes.
I am the Director of Indigenous Education. Again, new to the position. Lots of work has been done. Paul McDonough, the supervisor, President Bellamy and Carl Jacobs met yesterday. We as a department are in full support of this land acknowledgement. We understand that there may be some mixed feelings and some thoughts about this. It does require some work that needs to be done in educating our staff members, the public, and our students. And we are willing to do that work in collaboration with the school board members who bring this forward. And then I'll defer it to Mr. McDonough, the supervisor, who's done the groundwork for this.
So I guess I'll be addressing Chair Holloman, but a lot of the sentiment in the room. Firstly, introducing again myself, I'm the supervisor of Indigenous programs, but really more importantly, I'm from Perryville, Alaska, the village down west of Kodiak. Indigenous is a non-racial concept, at least to the community that we're building in, but I understand that there's mixed kind of academic intention around what Indigenous and race and these concepts mean. Indigenous means where you're from, not the group of people that you're assimilating with or something. But I do hear, Member Donnelly's concerns that the citations were, as you said, political. And I'd like to at least introduce the idea that many of the citations you were mentioning, like I had it here, Dr. Debbie Reese, she's an academic, not a political activist. She does research and writes papers on Indigenous issues. Not to challenge too much, because there's definitely a gray area between where academics go and where politics begins. I think it's the board's responsibility to take activist type pieces and create something that can fit what our authority is. So I appreciate trying to limit the bounds of authority with your sentiments here. I took note of at least one thing that I appreciated, which is the concept of free speech and the individual right of the student. The way that my elders teach land acknowledgement is it's an authority, it's kind of an honorific. And I think there's a lot of legwork that we'll have to do with administration, and Member Jacobs is mentioning this, how we bring knowledge from something like this all the way down into the administration needs to be really intentional. One thing principals should be taught by the tribes is this is an honorific that is done with authority. So you don't just have a student come and read a land acknowledgement unless it's like bestowed onto them. But I hear that the lack of checking authoritarianism, I think that there could be work done on that. If we limit authority with this, it still doesn't take away the heart of what President Bellamy was trying to get at.
Thank you. I don't know that anyone else has any comments, but
Back here, if we could. Oh, we're parents. I'm obviously not white. I'm white, but my wife is Native. So our kids are half Native. And we both feel that this is extremely condescending to our kids. When there's the land acknowledgement that happens at the different assemblies and things, invariably there's parents who look at my wife, who look at my children and look at them like they're less than they're what's a good word for them?
Worthy.
Like they need pity from people. It doesn't come across as genuine. So what I see is, what is the point of this? And when we read the sheet that you guys proposed that says the draft that came out talking about decolonization, and to say that that's not political, when you start talking about decolonization and returning the land, when you read some of the footnotes, start going down the rabbit hole of these authors who wrote these things, it's extremely political. I'm proud of my heritage. My wife's proud of her heritage. Our children are proud of both of their heritages. And this does nothing other than assuage, sorry, ruffle some feathers here, but I feel it does nothing but assuages white guilt for people who are imposing it on the others. Honestly, I'm glad that we've solved all the other problems with the schools that are going on for our students, that we're taking the time to address this, because last I checked, we've got a lot of issues in our schools between school buses, failing grades. And to be spending time forcing this on students and further isolating our children within the schools. This is not something you guys should be spending time on.
It's very political. Even though you're saying it's not, it is. And it is, it's embarrassing. Every time I hear this principal announce it before an assembly, I cringe. Because people look at me like, I'm so sorry.
She doesn't need your pity.
I don't. I'm not a native of Alaska, but I am Indian from Arizona. I'm half Navajo, half Hopi. I grew up dirt poor, literally dirt poor. No water, no electricity. But look where I am. I'm a business owner. I worked hard. I think in my entire adult life, I've actually had only one encounter of racism. And I handled that very well. My grandfather always told me, never be sad and have pity and play the victim card for where you came from or who you are. And I never have. And I see that happening a lot. And this actually just kind of puts another thumb on a native to say, oh, let's just feel sorry for you. Let's continue to just give you these handouts and pat you on the back. How about you actually work for what you have? It's condescending. The first time I heard it, like I said, I cringed and I thought, what is going on here? What's happening? If you want to talk about land acknowledgement and the history of the natives here, have classes. Actually bring it back into the history classes. Actually talk about it. How about have presenters come into the classroom, into the school and demonstrate something from their tribe? How about that? What does the land acknowledgement actually do? What does it do?
Other than ostracize the children and
What are you accomplishing here? You are so far political into this that you can't say that it's not political. It's very political. There is no ifs, ands, or buts that it's like, oh, let's not get into the political side of this. You're far beyond that. And it sounds like you're already passing it anyway. Let's just rearrange our wording in it to make it sound a lot nicer.
I'm born and raised here in Anchorage. I'm a product of the Anchorage School District, and I'm actually pretty close to pulling our kids out and just doing homeschool because I'm so fed up with the direction of the Anchorage School District. It is not the schools that I grew up in. And granted, we had our issues going through, but it's gone so far. Reading, writing, math, history, and I wish, honestly, I thought this back in the day is that if there were classes about our actual Alaska history that actually went into the native history and through all that, I would have loved those classes, but it wasn't even offered back when I was a student. So I'm glad that some of those classes are available now. I grew up, I was probably in my 20s before I discovered that the Dena'ina people were, the ancestors of this land. I wanted to learn more. I love going to the museum and learning more from there, but this doesn't do anything to further that. It just, sorry, I'm gonna say it again, a bunch of non-natives sitting on a board who feel guilty about their involvement in colonization, quote unquote. Your ancestors did something crappy to some other people's ancestors. Okay, what are we gonna do about it? Pass some meaningless, less than meaningless, an insulting and demeaning resolution that makes students, teachers, principals isolate children and make them, it doesn't do anything other than assuage your guilt. That's it. Sorry. You can tell we're passionate about this because
We have children that are mixed race. So the children ask us, like, what are we supposed to do? Are we supposed to choose sides? What are you supposed to say? Am I a colonizer or am I a native of the land? Which am I supposed to choose? What do you tell them?
Appreciate your comments. We're gonna move on with other comments that people in the room may have. And I will say for the record, it's general policy that we don't respond directly. We don't don't want to get in an argument with you about it back and forth, but we do appreciate coming voicing an opinion that wasn't heard, but you said.
I'd like to speak in wrap up.
Yes. Member Jacobs.
Oh, defer to member list, so we'll speak in wrap up.
Member Lawson.
So I think, I appreciate Member Donnelly's comments. I do see the value in amending this. Would suggest that we tentatively strike that last therefore.
I don't have Mr. Chairman, it's really hard, but I don't even have a copy, a paper copy.
Right.
I designed all my comments based on what I had, and it didn't come out till this morning. And I would have crafted in writing specific to fit this document. And I'm sitting here writing as fast as I can, trying to pick up, what I thought was from where I thought we were going to be today, working up. But this, the other draft one.
So there was last minute changes being made to it.
I
so,
understand.
But I have a
I'm-
copy for you printing right now.
I understand that. It happens all the time. It's just that it makes it really tough to wordsmith, and
So if I could, my suggestion would be for the moment to strike, but it would read, therefore, the Anchorage School Board directs the superintendent to promote the necessary collaboration between the, I apologize, the Kootenai tribe and the Anchorage School District to write, not strike, to maintain, a living land acknowledgement statement and bring that acknowledgement to the board for approval, period. And it would strike the rest of that. So that would essentially be this resolution is formally asking the administration to draft that acknowledgement. And my second point was really a comment that I continue to be uncertain of what under the abbreviated land acknowledgement the starts of school weeks means. It's not clear whether that's in class, whether that's announcements Monday morning, if it's every day. So that's a little bit of a vague language that continues to be open for me.
Member Jacobs.
Madam President, I think she's.
President Bellman.
Sure. I thought we had, Kelly, I'm okay with that edit to the last, therefore. If you go up to, I thought we modified like the Anchorage School, let's see, from the bottom, 1, 2, 3. The Anchorage School Board, let's see, can't even read it. Hold on, let me make this bigger. Make my screen bigger. So 3 paragraphs up from the bottom there. And I think, I don't know, Kelly, not Kelly, Amanda, can you type into this document? Do you have it in a position where you can type into it so that we capture what the changes that we're making?
Let me see if I can find the Word doc to do
I
that.
can email this to Amanda.
Okay.
Okay, that's good. That'll work. But we changed that district, we changed it to the Anchorage School Board resolves that for this resolution, that all Anchorage School District schools and programs will honor, acknowledge, and respect. And I know Member Donnelly had an issue with the word unceded. I didn't see that until this morning, though. And so we can either ancestral or traditional Denina lands. I don't care which, but I'm not tied to the word unceded. During district-sponsored gatherings open to the public, including but not limited to school events, school celebrations, athletic competitions, and intramural events. So the language that you were referencing, Member Lessons, was taken out.
And what I'm
Well,
going to
wait,
suggest as
just a-
chair, unless someone has a compelling need to make a motion that we do pass this to the board. Obviously, we still have more comments and we have some work to do. And we have a very hard stop at noon because this room is in use for another meeting.
Yes.
So I'm going to suggest that we defer this to the next regular meeting of the governance committee in September, whenever September is, and that's being said by somebody that really hates the fact it's already August. But sometime in September, we do have a meeting scheduled, and we will have copies and have more time to look at the details and absorb everything that's been said here today.
Mr. Chairman, just really quickly, I share Member Less's concerns with the language starts of school weeks is still in here. It's in the second indented paragraph.
Yeah, the second bullet point.
Yeah, all that can be addressed with proposals to come back to this meeting. If no one has any objection, I will entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting.
So moved.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, I see that.
If there are no objections, we are adjourned.
Thank you.
Yes, I could get a Word version of the new proposal.
Absolutely, I can.
I could.
Yep, I'll email that to you.